Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Bolzakelli for Catholic Studies Academy. Today I'd like to ask the question, what kind of a fruit is the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? The Bible doesn't tell us. In fact, the story in the Bible about the garden is an allegory, and so the various images that we encounter there, the two trees, the serpent, and so forth, are really images of other things, conceptual realities. But nonetheless, artists have depicted the fruit according to species that are known to us. For Western Christians, the most common depiction is as an apple. Why would we depict it as an apple? Actually, the apple was a sacred and ritualistic fruit for the Druids. When Christian missionaries encountered the Druids, they encountered what they saw as a demonic religion. The Druids offered human sacrifice, which was especially abominable for the Judeo-Christian tradition. It would remind us of the ancient pagan religions that surrounded the Hebrew people in the Old Testament. Those who worshipped Moloch, for example, and threw their children into bonfires. And so when converts were made out of these people, and they became Christians, liberated from this demonic religion in which human sacrifice was offered, they were reminded of the nature of the religion that they'd left behind and the choice between that pagan religion and Christianity was depicted in art when the story of the garden was shown and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was depicted as the apple tree, the sacred fruit of the Druids. In fact, this represents really a correct reading of the garden narrative, where the two trees represent the choice between paganism and the Hebrew view of reality, in which there's one God who loves the world into being, not good and evil as principles vying against one another, but absolute goodness that loves the world into being and is the source of all life. In Greek Christianity, however, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is often depicted as a pomegranate. Why would that be? Here the reference is to the story of Persephone, the daughter of Zeus, who is abducted by Hades into the underworld where she is to be his wife. She doesn't want to remain there, but Hades tricks her by enticing her to eat just 6 seeds from the pomegranate fruit. By doing so, she becomes subject to a rule of the fates, namely, if anyone should eat while in the underworld, that person would have to remain there. Persephone finds herself now trapped in the underworld. It's easy to see the parallel here between the story of Persephone and the story of the Garden of Eden and the fall, where Eve eats the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and in so doing entraps and snares humanity under the dominion of the serpent. Now, those aren't the only depictions we find of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Some Jewish rabbis have suggested that we should think of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil as a fig. Why? Because, in fact, the fig grows in abundance in the Near East. It's everywhere. This is a fruit we can have any time we like. So what it shows is that when God says you will not eat from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he's not denying anything that he doesn't elsewhere provide for the man and the woman in the garden. Rather, they choose to eat from that particular tree because they've opted for an understanding of God that conforms to the serpent's representation of him. God is not a provident and loving Father who showers us with blessings, but instead one who withholds blessings from us for ends known only to himself. Yet, the abundance of the garden tells a different story about this God. All the evidence surrounding the man and the woman in this primordial state makes it clear that God is a God who wishes to bless. This is the God of Hanan, the God who manifests an abiding disposition to bless and to do good for human beings. The serpent persuades the man and the woman in the garden to see him in a different light, and thus this one tree, which offers nothing they don't already possess, is seen as the most enticing thing in the world. If only they could eat that, what God is keeping from them. And so they exchange everything they have and get nothing in return.